He was the Queen's right-hand man, a husband, father, grandfather and great-grandfather, and one of the biggest personalities in the royal household.
I've seen the world's most experienced pluck on there.
Prince Philip left an impression wherever he went, and he leaves a lasting legacy in his work with youth development.
The main purpose of the scheme is to help boys to find activities which will give them pleasure and satisfaction, perhaps for the rest of their lives.
Millions of people have taken part in the Duke of Edinburgh's awards since he set them up in 1956. He described it as a do-it-yourself kit for growing up. Generations have the scheme to thank for developing their confidence, commitment and team skills.
You become a family. It's massive, DV. It's amazing how you sit in a room on the first day, you meet each other, you're dead quiet, but then 20 minutes into it, you're talking. And then a week later, you've left your residential and you're a family. Actually pushing yourself, challenging yourself to go and do all this, meet new people, do your residentials and your camping, the hiking, in our case the canoeing. It was fantastic and it's something I wanted to do.
This is the Loch Ness. Smile guys, you owned it here.
Chris and his team from Bolton spent 10 days canoeing through Scottish lochs as part of their Gold Award. They met Prince Philip at a special presentation at Holyrood Palace in Edinburgh.
It was daunting, but then when he did come out, he totally made you feel at ease. He literally just spoke to you like a normal person, and it was just so calming, and he was quite witty as well, which I just wasn't expecting.
It wasn't a good choice, was it?
One of the things that sticks out for me was he said, why don't you do it down a river instead of doing it all over a load of lochs?
Because if you're going to do it by boat, you want to do it in a river, then you float down, you don't have to do it.
How do you answer that question? You literally can't, you just stop. And you stand there and he just carries on. He's just an absolute amazing experience it was for me.
That sort of thing you wouldn't expect from someone like him. It just calmed you down, relaxed you, and you could speak to him like a human being rather than the royalty that he was.
Prince Philip gave up his career in the Navy when his wife became Queen. Instead, he became her consort.
This is the first time since her coronation that Her Majesty has visited Lancashire. In St Helens, as at every place on the royal route, crowds gather in thousands to give the Queen and the Duke a warm welcome.
Prince Philip was to become the oldest ever man in the royal family and the longest serving consort. He quickly established the protocol of staying 2 steps behind. But he wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Here he is in Liverpool in 1998 with retired Admiral Mike Gretton, who'd just taken over running the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. The outspoken prince was unveiling a statue of war hero Captain Johnny Walker.
Not suffering fools gladly could have been coined for him, but on this particular day he was in very good form, and I remember very clearly sitting next to him on the VIP stand whilst Admiral Gretton was making his initial welcoming address, and he mentioned that we were very pleased to have the Prince Philip here today, and particularly so because he just started as the director of the Duke of Edinburgh's award. And Prince Philip, with a smile on his face, turned to me and said, see, we're not spared the bloody commercials today then.
He maintained his interest in boats into his later years, visiting West Kirby in Wirral to celebrate the anniversary of the model yacht group of which he was patron.
He was a sailor, a keen sailor of keelboats and dinghies when he was at sea in the Navy, and in fact he competed at Cowes Week on many, many occasions. And so this is just miniature sailing really, and so that's I think why he chose to take on the patroncy.
When he decided he wanted to go somewhere, then he was going.
Prince Philip enjoyed good health for most of his life, and he was still sprightly when he toured the Marine Lake.
He just took off, and he was even at 89, he was very quick. You know, it was all anybody could do to keep up with him, and including the security detail. I mean, at one point we walked out round the lake wall. I mean, I'm sure there was security out that way, but the people walking past him sort of taking 2 looks as if to say, that's the Duke of Edinburgh.
He was very nice, very polite, very pleasant, interesting to talk to. Obviously knew a little bit about what he was coming to, and knew a bit about West Kirby in the area, because of course he used to go to Hilborough Island, didn't he, bird watching.
Hilbury in the Dee estuary is a sanctuary for migrating birds. The Duke came here 3 times. His visits were kept secret, though he did leave his mark in the guest book. The first time Prince Philip came here, he was driven down from Balmoral. Off the radar, he stayed in much more modest accommodation. He spent 3 days here watching the birds, taking photographs and enjoying eating shrimp. He left in a less subtle fashion, flying his own helicopter. This need for speed remained with the Duke, no more so than when he was carriage driving.
He was known to use a few choice words with his ponies when they weren't performing to his expectations.
He helped write the rule book and continued competing at international level until he was 85.
Everybody within the driving sort of community saw Prince Philip as just a fellow competitor, and a lot of us got to know him on a very sort of personal basis, and it was a forum where he could actually just relax and just be sort of part of what perhaps normal community and just enjoy everyday life.
Ursula Hirschberg from near Tarpley in Cheshire became friends with the Duke over the years. She recalls a man who was keen to drop the airs and graces.
We were at Sandringham one year and I was just asked to be ready at a certain time. I was then picked up and taken through all sort of the tracks on the estate, and we came into this clearing where there was just sort of a wooden hut, and there was Prince Philip with a baseball cap on, shirt sleeves rolled up, and he was actually cooking the barbecue for us.
The Duke competed in driving trials near Morecambe Bay, so one day he thought it would be a good idea to do a horse-drawn crossing of the treacherous sands.
It wasn't just a ride across any old sands, there was quicksands to be avoided.
It would be the first time anyone had done so in 100 years, and the Prince put his faith in guide Cedric Robinson. Thousands of people joined them on the shore as they waited for the right time to cross.
This crossing of the sands, it stood out, it's always stood in my mind and memory. I'll never forget it. I thought, now, how many people, so simple fishermen like me, sat aside of the Duke of Edinburgh and crossing the bay. I always wondered what it was going to be like. The crowds were running alongside them and cheering. He suddenly said to me, "Stand up, Mr. Robinson." He said, "It's you the cheering, not me." Yeah. The organiser said to me, "You're in charge, Cedric. Don't let him have his own way." So, well, I mean, I read about him. I knew he was a man's man and straight forth comes out with things sometimes which he shouldn't do. But on 3 occasions I had to ask him, would you mind slowing the team down?
The Duke of Edinburgh will be remembered for his unwavering servitude and his uninhibited humour.
Prince Philip was hysterically funny. He always made me laugh a lot because he'd ask me really awkward questions and I'd have to think 100 times what I was going to say because I didn't really want to offend him. But he really wanted me to say something quite ridiculous as a reply, and he always got what he wanted out of me.
Across the Northwest, decade after decade, Prince Philip left indelible memories with all who he met.
He was just one of us, and I think that's what he really enjoyed.
To play, at least on the face of it, second fiddle, I think he carved out a niche for himself, particularly with young people, with the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme and all that sort of stuff.
He's been wonderful for the Queen. I think he's had a wonderful life.
He will be sadly missed because he was the life support for the Queen and he has always been there. We all know him to be at her side.
Andy Bonner, ITV News.